complete idiot. But I'm the kind of person who likes to prepare. Right? I like to be organized and not have any surprises. So this morning, got up at 5:30 and I kind of went over my notes and made sure everything was okay. Looked over my PowerPoint slides. All right, this is good. Made sure things were good. B had said we had to get here at 8:45. I'm like, all right, cool, no problem. 8:45, I'm at the church. Looking around, nobody's here. Churches usually have a back entrance that the people who know the church know about, but everybody else doesn't know about. So I've been around the block a few times, and I figured, okay, let me find this back entrance to the church. So I'm walking around the property, and I'm looking, and I see a basement door, and I kind of go downstairs, and it's open. So obviously she must be here. So I open the door, and I go in, all the lights are off. Okay. All right. Like I said, I've been around the block a few times. I know how to turn lights on and turn on sound system. So I go, I do that, I turn on the sound system, get the mic check going, make sure everything's good, get slides up, right? Nobody's around. It's very odd. And lo and behold, I finally get the sense to reach out and say, what's going on? Where are you guys? And I find out I am at the wrong church. I have broken into a church. So with everything I'm going to tell you, understand you're speaking to a felon. Okay? So that's, besides that, I'll give you some background about my ministry and about me and my marriage. Like she said, I started Your Ever After. And at Your Ever After, we like to say that the happily is up to you. And the reason I say that is because everyone is going to have an ever after. The question is, what kind of ever after is it going to be? And I think if you choose happily, you can have happily. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So, about me and my wife. I celebrated my first, or I won't say celebrated, but it was a little bit of a celebration. My first kiss with my wife was on October 15th, 1992. And the wonderful thing about that is I just turned 40, so now I've been with her for more than 20 years, which means more than half of my life I've been with my wife, and that just is amazing to me, because every day from now on, there's less and less of my life that was without her, and more of it was with her. And she's my absolute best friend, and because of the relationship that I have with her, I can stand here to tell you, you can have a happily ever after. It is possible. We've been married for 17 years, have children, a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old, and my daughter is the 11-year-old. She's going to be 12 on Valentine's Day, actually. And we waited about 5 years before we had any kids. Now, this is interesting, because that bothered a lot of people. I don't know about you, but before you get married, it's, when are you getting married? When are you getting married? When are you getting married? Right? You get married, when are you having kids? When are you having kids? You have a kid, when are you having another? When are you having another? And it's like, okay, what are you going to ask me next? When are you going to die? Can I live my life? Right? So we waited for a while. But the funny thing is, kids are wonderful. I love my kids. We hang out all the time. I can now have semi-intelligent conversations with them. They're old enough. It's kind of cool. They're actually like real people. And but there's as much as I love them, there's an interesting impact that children have on marriages. If you were to plot out marital satisfaction over the years, it kind of goes something like this. It's like this nice, oh, you honeymoon, oh, it's beautiful, oh, you just got your first apartment, oh, it's so wonderful, oh, we're picking out curtains and furniture, and everything is glorious. And then you have kids, and it's like, the housing market just collapses or something. What happens? And we don't want to say that. We feel bad about saying that, because they're our children. We love them. We prayed for them. It's like, oh Lord, my blessing, my joy. And to say that, you don't want to say that. You don't want to say that they're bad, but it hurts the marriage. I remember back when my son was born, I worked in IT at Lehman Brothers, and very high intensity job, lots of hours, all that kind of stuff. Had a pager on the weekends and that. And I was looking through the HR information, and I realized I could take paternity leave. when my son was born. And this was just amazing to me. I was like, are you kidding me? I remembered how much it hurt when I had to leave my daughter and go back to work. But now they were going to give me a chance to stay home for 3 months with pay to take care of my son. Oh, it was amazing. I was so excited. Now my boss didn't like this idea. You know, that policy was written for the women. That, you know, guys don't do that. And he made it very clear that he was not happy with it. And he probably broke so many laws with threats and all kinds of stuff. But I didn't care. I was not going to let that opportunity go. I was going to stay home with my kid. So I did. And, you know, I started out, I was so excited because not only, and get this, not only am I going to get to spend 3 months with my son and bond with him and have that time, but I'm going to be at home for 3 months. You know, doing nothing but taking care of a kid. I mean, I'm going to have tons of time. I had this list of projects that I always wanted to do. I was going to knock them out. I was so excited. And I had at least 10 different things on my list that I was going to knock out in 3 months doing nothing. Come on, this is going to be great. Yes, you all know. I didn't get it. It didn't take very long before my definition of a successful day was that I get to take a shower before 5. And I wasn't even dealing with laundry and cooking. Now, my wife still handled that stuff. So, you know, it's hard. It's hard. But you know how it is. For all the wonderfulness, it's just an exhausting job. It's an exhausting, exhausting job. Especially when they're little, when they're at this age, this preschool age, they never let you go. You know, and getting them to sleep is such an ordeal. You know, you get the little one, you're like, okay, you're putting yourself to sleep more than you're putting her to sleep, right? And you, okay, finally. And who designed cribs anyway? Now, how are you going to do that? Okay, so you finally manage to get her in, she's not moving, okay. Creak! Wakes up, okay, go again. This time you step over the creek. Okay, you get out, all right, fine, good. You lie down, you're exhausted. You collapse. Okay, what are the things I had to do? I didn't do. Okay, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. What I got to do tomorrow? All right, I finished this, I finished that. And you're starting to get foggy and losing consciousness. And at just that moment, you feel a hand on your body. And you're like, are you kidding me? I haven't said 2 words to you all day. I don't know who you are. I'm exhausted. And you wanna do what? You know, and before I get into this, I need to explain something, a little bit something about the way men and women view intimacy. For women, and this is generalized, so this might not be you, but in general, women see intimacy as an expression, sex. Women see sex as an expression of intimacy. Okay? So if there's no intimacy, there's really no desire to have sex. It's like, I don't know who you are, I don't feel intimate with you, get away. Men see it the other way around. They see intimacy, they see sex as a gateway to intimacy. So for a man, if he hasn't seen you, sex would be a great way to reconnect. And, you know, it makes for a very big disconnect. Both trying to achieve similar goals, but using different paths. So what we're going to be talking about today is, you know, the official title is renewing the waves of love, and how to rekindle the fire after the kids come. And there's a few things I'd like to talk about when we're talking about the concept of renewing this passion and renewing the sex life. And your sex life will follow laws of inertia. Now, I don't know if you understand the laws of inertia, right? A body in motion will stay in motion, a body at rest will stay at rest, okay? Same thing. A relationship that is not having sex will continue to comfortably not have sex. A relationship that is will continue to comfortably do that. And you just kind of get into a rut. Now remember how the man views sex. If he's using sex as a way to get closer to his wife, if he feels rejected, he isn't necessarily going to see it as, oh, my wife is exhausted. He's going to see it as, you know what, I made another attempt to get closer to my wife. We don't see each other. Guess she's not interested in me anymore. You know, and eventually, you know, one of the bad is the side products of this. If things like this continue and the inertia continues for too long, and there's too much rejection, a lot of times the men lose interest in sex altogether. And you'd be surprised at how many times I talk to people and it's the woman who's complaining about the frequency of sex. And it's related to this inertia that it continues for too long. Sometimes the desire just dies. So what do we do? I mean, we know what the problem is. You know, we all have little kids. We understand. But today I want to talk about what I call the 7 waves of love, or the 7 sides of sex, or however you want to name it. We're going to focus on 7 different things that you can do and think about to kind of get things moving in the right direction. First thing I want you to think about is sex in a relationship is a barometer. Okay? It's a barometer. If your relationship is doing well, your sex life will generally follow suit. But if you're realizing that your sex life is non-existent, it's boring, it's not pleasurable, or it's really a pain indicator telling you something is wrong someplace else. And think about it, if there's tension in the relationship, if you are walking on eggshells when you get home, you're expecting a fight, you're fighting over this, you're fighting over that, nothing is ever done right, and you're getting criticized, you're getting ignored, and now it's time to have sex, and you're naked. Are you going to feel safe? Are you going to feel, like this is going to be a great experience? Or are you going to still feel that you're going to pull that relationship into the bedroom with you? You're going to have that tension with you. You're not going to be able to be completely vulnerable. So think of it as a barometer. There was a time not too long ago where we were having a real hard time in this area, and I didn't know what was going on. I thought, okay, well maybe something medical is going on, or maybe we need some new technique, or read some book that explains how to do something different that we're not doing. I don't know. And the interesting thing is, when we really got down to it, it turned out to be that we had an issue about 2 years prior that we thought was resolved that really wasn't. And there was some stuff just hanging around, and it was inhibiting our ability to really enjoy ourselves. And so just remember, if you heal the relationship outside, that healed relationship will come inside the bedroom. The other side I want to talk about is desire. And there's always the difference. People think, well, men want it all the time, women don't want it all the time, sometimes the other way around. It's like, there's always a conflict of desire, and what I would say here is simply think sex. Think more about it. And I know that this sounds kind of scandalous, especially in Christian circles. You grow up and you hear sex is bad. Sex will get you a disease. Sex will get you. Don't do it, 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 don't even think about doing it. Then you get married and nobody says anything. And all of those years of expectation are still there. All of those messages about this being bad and dirty and sinful, and it still kind of lingers around, and we don't allow ourselves to think about it. But thinking about sex with your husband is not sinful. Look at Solomon, Songs of Solomon 1. It says, "Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is more delightful than wine. Pleasing is the fragrance of your perfumes, and your name is like perfume poured out. No wonder the young women love you. Take me away with you. Let us hurry. Let the king bring me into his chambers." This person is anticipating something good. She's thinking about it. And on the other side, look at in Proverbs 5:18, on the men's side. It says, "Let your fountain be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. A loving doe, a graceful deer. May her breast satisfy you always. May you ever be intoxicated with her love." Scripture tells us that it's okay if we're in the right context. Communication. And we talk a lot about communication in relationship. Communication here, though, too. You know, one of the hardest things to do is to talk about it. We can have sex much easier than we can talk about sex. Think about that. It should be the most intimate thing that you're doing when you're actually doing it. But it's not true. What's actually the most intimate thing is when you're talking about it. You know, why do we shut off lights? You know, what is that? There's a desire to hide. You know, one of the cool things my wife did at one point was, it was in the morning before I was going to work, and she told me, you know, "Man, I really wish something could have happened last night, but I was just too tired, and, you know, I just had this dream about you all night long because I was just too exhausted to roll over." And then she gave me my lunch and I went off to work. I was like, "Really? You know what that does?" I'll tell you what it is. The kids never got to bed as fast that night. And I'm not saying this as a way of manipulating. I'm not saying, we'll talk about this and he's going to go to the dishes. That's not what I'm getting at. But when you express your desire and it's known, that does something. Because, think about it. Remember the way the guy views sex? He's looking at this as, she didn't want me again. She rejected me again. Yeah, no. She just explained right now, on her own, I want you. I'm just too tired. Now, this puts us in a whole other situation. Now it's me and her together fighting the problem. Not us fighting each other. Well, why don't you want me? Or why don't you help out with that kids? Or all that kind of nonsense, right? So communication, it's scary, but it's vital. Energy. I'll talk a little bit about energy. Because, let's face it, when you are sleep deprived, you're not going to want to do anything. And this works both ways. Okay, if you're that tired, forget about it. If you want to improve your sex life, you need to find ways of saving energy for it. You have to save energy for it. Now, you think about, people sometimes talk about hotel sex. You go away on vacation or something and it's really good and all this kind of thing. Why is that? Well, most of the time you go on vacation, you're sleeping a lot more. You're rested. You're comfortable. You're not waiting till the last thing at the end of the day after the dishes are done and the laundry is folded and the kids are asleep and you're seconds away from passing out. You're making time for it, so you're saving energy for it, so it's better. And this brings me to another thought. It's really critical if you can find ways of helping each other through the night. Taking turns feeding the baby and all that kind of stuff. And I know that, probably some of you are probably thinking, you do not know my husband. World War II can be going on outside. He will not wake up. That baby will scream, 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 scream. He won't hear a thing, right? I'll tell you a secret. He hears. He's not going to like me, but he hears. I'll tell you what the difference is, though. He believes it is not his responsibility. So he's able to ignore it and go back to sleep. And I know this because what I would do is, with my wife, is we would take turns, right? And I'm better at staying up late than she is. She's better at waking up early than I am. I had to go to work, she didn't. So we kind of worked it out where, you know what, I'll take the first shift. Anything up until 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll handle. And I'll wake up and go to sleep and wake up and go to sleep. It'll be not very restful sleep, but I'll get some sleep. But then after 2 o'clock, I know this is solid sleep time. I'll get some good rest right before I have to get up to go to work. And then the opposite. And it worked out pretty well because we both had energy. But you know what? As soon as 2 o'clock hit, I didn't hear the baby anymore. Because I knew it's not my responsibility. And there were so many times where I would wake up and say, wow, that was great. You didn't have to wake up tonight, honey. I mean, the baby slept through the night. And she's like, what, are you kidding me? You hear anything. So it's really about setting expectations and really communicating. And here's the other trick. You gotta wait them out. If the baby's crying and crying and crying, he's like, all right, she's gonna get up eventually. I know she is. And if you get up, then okay, you just proved it. But you gotta, your turn. And I know this can be a little difficult, especially if you're breastfeeding, things like that. It's hard. One of the things that we did also was, we primarily breastfed, but my wife pumped. So I would have some food available for the feedings. And, I know it was a little confusing at first, talk about nipple confusion, is the baby going to understand, and whatever. It was a little tricky the first few times, but you know what? Kids are adaptable. They figure it out. And it really helped save energy. And another thing that it does, and I know this is not really what we're talking about, but I'll just say, the other thing that it does is it really helps you bond with your kid. I mean, you know that when you're feeding that baby, that is one of the most intimate things that you can do. You're just staring, looking in your eyes, and you're rocking. And that baby comes to know you are a source of comfort. You are the one who takes away the pain. You are the safe place. If daddy is not doing that too, if all daddy gets to do is he's the one who pulls you out of a nice warm nap and strips off your clothes and wipes your body with a wet, cold napkin and pulls your onesie off and shoves your arm here or there and the other way and slaps you back in the bed. No wonder they don't respond when dad picks them up and mom's the only one that can stop the baby from crying. So you have to let that happen also as much as possible. You be partners. You be partners in it. Planning. Planning is the next thing I want to talk about. Now, I know at times people will say, and I've heard people say this, well, if you're that busy, you should just schedule sex. And I kind of hear where they're coming from, and my battery's dead, so I'm just going to talk about it. This is a little weird.
You got to point it. You have to. The receiver gets a little funny.
Okay. And I understand where they're coming from, but some people will say, well, that's just not romantic. I'm not just going to put on my calendar, okay, on this day we're going to do this. And it's just like, okay, now we're formed, no. But another reason, I was talking about the hotel sex. One of the reasons why that's good also is it's anticipated. Anticipation helps with the experience. So I would say more than scheduling, it's more about planning. It's more about looking at the schedule and being proactive and realistic. An example of this was the other night we were both exhausted and taking classes and staying up really late. We're lying down in the bed and we were just talking. And we said, you know what, tonight is shot. I'm exhausted, you're exhausted. Tomorrow, oh, that's not gonna work. We have group and we're gonna be out late. Thursday I have praise team rehearsal and that's not gonna work. Friday we have this. Saturday maybe we'll oh wait, no, you know what, those guys are coming over and they never leave. Sunday, yeah, I think you know what, we better make sure the kids get to bed early on Sunday. And it doesn't mean that Sunday happens and it must happen, okay, but just communicating desire and communicating a plan, it's going to be more likely that something's going to happen. If you don't plan for it, life gets in the way, and before you know it, A week goes by, 2 weeks goes by, 3 weeks goes by, you don't even remember when the last time something happened, and you're in a rut. And I guess let me say something also about babysitting here. I know it's also very hard a lot of times to leave your child with somebody else for the first time. And one of the things that we did is we joined a small group at church when my wife was pregnant. And there were 2 other pregnant women at the small group. So we went every week to the small group, did our Bible studies, prayed with each other, all of that kind of stuff. As the pregnancies developed, all the babies were born at the same time, and lo and behold, we now have a built-in support network of friends. And we don't pay for babysitting. If I ever want to go out on a date for a few hours, a weekend, a week, I have people that I can say, hey, you know what, can you take the kids? And they will. And because the kids all grew up together, they're friends. The kids don't even see it as anything bad. They're like, oh, I'm going to have a play date with so-and-so. You know? So I'll encourage you, in the situation, you look around here, it's 40, 30 women here. You know, there may be the possibility that there's somebody here that you could be compatible with and start to develop a relationship with, that you can have this type of mutual support. And if not here, at your home church or some other place, I really highly recommend it. And like I said, our kids are 11 years old, never paid for babysitting once. Next side, this is side number 6. Love is a choice. And likewise, so is sex. And I have people asking me things like, isn't it wrong for me to have sex with my husband if I'm not in the mood? And you know what, I get that. That makes a lot of sense. Especially if you go back to the way sex is viewed. If you're not in the mood, you're not connected, there's no intimacy, it would be like lying, right? You're pretending to want to be with this person and you're not. And I get that. But to that, I would ask this question: is it wrong for you to cook dinner for your spouse when you're tired? Is it wrong to drive your children to a play date when you're not in the mood? Is it wrong? Okay, Valentine's Day is coming up. Is it wrong? What if you're in the middle of a bad fight? You really do not like that guy right now. Is it wrong to go and shop for a Valentine's present? There are a lot of times when we choose to do things for love. And we make a choice. I am going to sacrificially choose to love you right now. And sometimes, if you can choose to give a gift without any strings attached, it's the best kind of gift in the world. And, who knows? Sometimes you might not be in the mood when you start, but when you end up, you might have wound up enjoying yourself, So it's part of that choosing happily. And it works both ways. I know when I'm talking to the men, I say the same thing. So. Next one I want to talk about is prayer. And I know this one is kind of funny. Think, okay, prayer and sex. Absolutely, these two do not go together. But I want you to remember who created it. God created sex. And the Bible says the marriage bed is pure and undefiled. And He wants the closeness of the marriage to reflect Christ's relationship with His church. So I say, it's okay to pray for your sex life. The interesting thing is that when we have sexual problems, like when my wife and I were having problems, what did we do? We gotta read some books, gotta get some magazines, what's the latest article, what's the latest, we look to the world for solutions. And the last place we go to is to God. We go to the one who corrupted sex. And we don't go to the one who created sex. We get our information from General Hospital, Sonny's sleeping around with everybody with brown hair, movies, pornography, whatever. The bottom line is, though, The information has to come from your husband. Any other information is misinformation. You know, he cannot be expected to behave like a guy on TV any more than you can be expected to look like the girl on TV. It's all misinformation. We need to work at purging our minds of what that junk says sex is supposed to be like, and realize that it really doesn't. The only thing that matters is what pleases you, what pleases me, how does this enhance our relationship. So I would say pray. That was also one of the turning points when we were having our problems and we had no idea what to do. I was so desperate, I decided to pray. And unfortunately, that's the way things work a lot of times. We will not pray unless we are absolutely desperate. And we've tried everything else. And we have tried everything else. And I remember praying, God, can you please help us? You designed this. Help to make this what it's supposed to be. I want to be able to please my wife. I want to give her these gifts. And that was the starting point. That was the beginning. And he began to heal it. So don't forget to pray. Now, what we're going to do is transition a little bit. Table leaders are going to have some questions, and I'm going to want you to take some time. And you don't have to go through them one by one. It's not like a curriculum, but you know, let it flow. But try and see what you can get through. And take some time to discuss this. And I know it's hard. Like I said before, talking about this is harder than anything else. So I'll give you a couple of guidelines. Honor, above all else. When you're sharing with each other, this is not an opportunity to bring up stories or kind of, you know, make your husband look bad or anything like that. You know, be respectful, have honor. And hopefully, you know, in a group of women, it's a little bit easier to talk. And then maybe when you get home, it'll make it a little bit easier to talk there too. So go around, we'll spend some time doing that, and then we'll, you know, depending on how conversations go, we'll might have open mic question and answer or all right?